Rebecca, you good? Good evening and welcome to the December 7th, 2022 meeting of the Montgomery County Historic Preservation Commission. My name is Bob Sutton and I'm the chair, and I would like to start with having members of the commission and staff introduce themselves, starting on my left.
Jeffrey Haynes.
Karen Burdett.
Julie Pelletier.
Zara Nasser.
James Doman.
Michael Galway.
Rebecca Ballo, Historic Preservation Staff.
Dan Bruckert, Historic Preservation Staff.
John Liebert, Historic Preservation Staff.
Thank you. The first item on our agenda tonight is a public hearing on work on the listing of the master plan for the Historic Preservation Amendment for the Weller Dry Cleaning Building at 8237 Fenton Street, Silver Spring. And I believe that we have a staff report on this to start off with.
Yes, good evening. John Liebert, Cultural Resource Planner for the record. The purpose of tonight's public hearing and work session is to determine whether the Weller's Dry Cleaning site at 8237 Fenton Avenue in downtown Silver Spring meets designation criteria for listing in the Master Plan for Historic Preservation. Staff advises the Commission takes the following actions. First, that the site meets the designation criteria as outlined in Section 24A3 of the County Code. Second, that a request that the Planning Board list the property in the locational atlas. And lastly, that a request the Planning Board recommends in its transmission to the County Council that the property be listed in the Master Plan for Historic Preservation. Resources listed to the master plan must satisfy historical and cultural significance or architectural and design significance. The designation process includes hearings at the Historic Preservation Commission, such as the one tonight, Planning Board, and County Council. The County Council ultimately decides whether a resource is listed. The study of the Weller's dry cleaning site started in 2002. The Historic Site Survey Report for Silver Spring noted that the building should be considered for listing in the National Register of Historic Preservation and/or the Master Plan for Historic Preservation. In 2015, Clara Kelly, then architectural historian for Montgomery Planning, featured Weller's Dry Cleaning in her publication Montgomery Modern. She noted that the building served as a gateway to the Fenton Street commercial area. In 2022, the County Council adopted the Silver Spring and Downtown Adjacent Communities Plan, which recommended studying Weller's and encouraged the adaptive use of the building if the occupant and use changed. The approval of that plan, paired with the recent closure of the dry cleaning business, spurred the start of this process. The environmental setting for the historic site includes the entire parcel associated with the business and the signage located in the current sidewalk and right-of-way. Here are some quick highlights of Weller's Dry Cleaning before we explore the historic context in greater detail. Architect Ted Engelhart designed the building in the Googie style, a subset of the modern movement for the Weller brothers. The dry cleaner opened in 1961 and is a significant example of roadside commercial architecture in Montgomery County. On the screens are photographs of the building before and after its recent painting and adaptive reuse. First, I wanted to share some brief context regarding the history of dry cleaning industry and Googie architecture. The Wellers brothers entered the dry cleaning business at an exciting time as the industry evolved due to the new technologies, mechanization, and expanded business models. The relegation of these businesses to industrial and manufacturing areas of the cities ended as companies directly engaged with consumers. In particular, drive-in and drive-through dry cleaners expanded after World War II, and these businesses were located on well-traveled roads that facilitated the pickup and drop-off of clothing. These advancements in the spread of suburban cleaners focused on capturing the attention of motorists, which led to the changes in design of the stores. Manuals published regarding the design of dry cleaning plants highlighted the advantages of the modern movement in architecture to create forward-looking, streamlined designs with wide canopies that would engage the public. Architects recognized that the new stores would serve as the primary advertisement for the business. Therefore, they employed brilliant colors and floor-to-ceiling plate glass windows to invite customers to view the modern equipment and cleaning process. Furthermore, the industry recognized the importance of large, bold signage during the day and illuminated signs for the evening hours, and Googie architecture coalesced with many of these design ideas. So Googie architecture started in California and spread across America in the 1940s and 1950s. The style captured the growing aesthetic for roadside architecture, which the public embraced for coffee houses, diners, drive-ins, motels, bowling alleys, arcades, and dry cleaners. Architects of the style capitalized on the national obsession with atomic energy, space travel, and new building technologies. These buildings had bold and dynamic features that created strong curb appeal for motorists and the surrounding community. And here are two examples of Googie-style buildings in Los Angeles. The character-defining elements of the Googie style included dramatic angles and shapes, upswept cantilevered roofs, and floor-to-ceiling windows, all juxtaposed with natural materials such as stone veneers. Bold commercial signage attracted customers with its physical presence in the landscape. And here we have the Prestige Exceptional Fabricaire, another Googie-style dry cleaners located on Georgia Avenue in Montgomery Hills. Now I'll shift to the history of Weller's Dry Cleaning, its original owners, and architect. Benjamin Weller started his career in the dry cleaning industry in the 1940s. He opened a one-hour modernizing dry cleaning franchise store in Silver Spring in 1950, and then a second store in Rockville in 1953. Around that time, World War II veteran Charles Weller, his brother, moved from Pennsylvania to join the company. Charles first served as manager of the business. Charles and Benjamin Weller purchased the property on Fenton Street in 1960. As you can see on the sign advertising in the construction photograph, it started as a one-hour modernizing franchise who had the slogan shown here, the most in dry cleaning. One-hour modernizing and similar franchises had shifted to non-flammable synthetic solvents that allowed for quicker on-site service in the 1940s. The company offered small businesses the advantages of training, equipment, selection, layout, market research, advertising, and accounting, while these businesses retained their traditional independence. So the Weller brothers hired architect Ted Engelhardt to design the store. Julian Theodore Engelhardt, better known as Ted Engelhardt, started his career in Tennessee before moving to Washington, D.C. in the 1930s. Engelhardt was one of the early founders of Potomac Valley chapter of the AIA and first served as treasurer before his election as the third president of the chapter. Locally, he designed numerous buildings at the University of Maryland, the Operations Research Institute in downtown Silver Spring, and other churches, schools, and shopping centers. The store opened in 1961. Benjamin Weller, who had a less direct involvement with business, divested his financial interest at the subject property in 1978. And Charles Weller owned and operated the dry cleaning business for over 55 years until he died at his home in Silver Spring in 2016. Now I'll shift to the design of the building. Architect Ted Engelhardt relied on the elements of the Googie style to create a landmark building in downtown Silver Spring. He successfully contrasted the solid porcelain enamel box to a stone veneered and later projecting section featuring expansive windows and a cantilevered awning that floated in the air. This roof form permitted greater visibility with its floor-to-ceiling windows. In addition, the business featured an original, distinctive Googie-styled sign that oriented travelers on Fenton Street and harmonized with the design of the building. All these features combined to create a playful and quirky landmark that engaged the everyday consumer with a modern and popular architecture in lieu of the high-style austerity of the international, brutalist, and expressionist styles. And shown on the slide is the building and its signage. And here is a side elevation of the building. I'd like to note that there is an addition to the south elevation of the building, which was constructed prior to 1970. The addition anchors the upswept cantilevered roof canopy to the building instead of the original design where it likely floated beyond the southern elevation. Nevertheless, these alterations do not negate the building's architectural value as it continues to express the core components of the Googie style and form. And on the slide, and on the next slide, you can see the addition on the south elevation and a model of what we believe would have been the original design. Again, here is the current building and the original design. We're looking across Fenton Street, and the red arrow points to that addition that I was speaking about. So next, I'll move to our staff recommendations. Staff finds that the site meets two designation criteria related to architectural and design significance. The Weller's Dry Cleaning is a rare example of Googie commercial architecture in Montgomery County. Throughout the region and country, many of these architectural resources have been lost to demolition. The publication Montgomery Modern, a chronicle of mid-century modern architecture, again, documented this as one of 3 commercial Googie-style buildings in the county. So, again, staff advises that the commission takes the following actions: that the site meets the designation criteria as outlined in the county code, that they request the planning board list the property in the locational atlas, and that they request that the planning board recommends in its transmission to the county council that the property be listed in the master plan for historic preservation. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the commission may have.
Commission have any questions for staff? I'm sorry. Yes, Commissioner Burdett.
The building has been painted fairly recently. Is it feasible to remove the paint and restore the building to its original appearance?
This is Rebecca Ballo for the record. Because we don't know the type of paint that was used, we don't know, to be honest, what type of treatment might be feasible to remove it from the brick or from the porcelain steel enamel panels. Presumably, it might be easier to remove it from the porcelain enamel, but staff does not have enough information at this time to answer that question.
Thank you.
Commissioner Doman.
Previously, there are some questions about environmental impact inside the building and on the grounds due to the use of the cleaning solvents for the dry cleaning. Has any of this been addressed in any of your further communications with the current owner?
I believe and the property owners can speak to this when they come and they're signed up to testify. But I believe that they've coordinated with the state agency and that those issues have been remedied sufficiently so that there's a business currently operating in the store with the state, with all that taken care of at this point.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Is the owner here this evening? Would you like to testify for this project? Can you come forward to the table? Turn on the microphone. You push the button on it when the light turns green. And if you could state your name for the record, that would be great. And you'll have 7 minutes for your testimony. I beg your pardon?
Her name.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And what do I have to say? I thought today we are here to see different person. That's planning department. But when we came last time, I saw the same face. Today, the same people. And are you commissioner of, or which one is planning department? The same people, you have the same name or different name?
I understand the confusion. At the last hearing, based on the schedule, we were planning on going from the Historic Preservation Commission to the Planning Board as a locational atlas review. But at this time, we are returning to the Historic Preservation Commission to list this to the Master Plan for Historic Preservation, so that when this goes forward, if the Historic Preservation Commission decides to send this forward to the Planning Board, it will be for listing it as a master plan site in addition to the locational atlas. So we're just moving it forward in one step instead of two as originally discussed. So this will be, so the next step of the public hearing process would be to move this forward to the planning board after this hearing if the Historic Preservation Commission makes such a recommendation.
Okay. Do you consider the first testimony, what we did, and this one is the second one, or you take this one as the first? How do you do it?
I think you could, I believe, you know, that the testimony's on record from the locational atlas hearing, and many of the commissioners were here to receive your testimony. Any additional information you'd like to provide or repeat to the commission, all that would be appreciated by the commission to hear your thoughts about the project, or even if you just want to provide a summary of your thoughts instead of going into each detail again, you know, we leave that up to your discretion.
No, I think my name is Dagmawi Lago. I was also here on the last time. The confusion here is the first time we were here was humiliating enough. Everybody had already decided on what you were going to do before as the owners of the property, we were given 7 minutes just to pretend like we had an opportunity to present our case. We come back today and it's the same faces. So we're thinking, what's the point of us being here today if we already know what the outcome of this is going to be. So if we're not going to present our case to someone else, which is the next step, why are we here?
I think the simple answer is that we are, last time, as John said, we are here. Last time, we were proposing to send this to the planning board as for listing in one of the procedures that we have, which is to put it on the locational atlas, which means it's a temporary protection of the site. This time, we feel it's significant enough that we want to present it to the planning board for listing on the as a master plan site in the county, and that's the purpose of having a second meeting tonight. And you're welcome to give a testimony, answer questions, whatever you would like.
Nothing has changed since the last time.
Nothing has changed, but I'm getting several letters from several places. In one day, I got 3 letters, and I don't know why. I don't know why this place is important for everyone.
Well, you heard that.
Yes, but why do I get all these letters from different places? If you invite us and testimony here, you know, Montgomery County is Montgomery County, and why do 3, 4 places are telling me to be in for debate in the court, and I got from other places. Why all this?
This is Rebecca Ballo for the record. I could attempt to address this. There are several other agencies that are involved, for example, about the signage. There's the Department of Permitting Services. There's already the work and your communication with the Maryland Department of the Environment. And then there's our office, the Historic Preservation Office with the Planning Department, that is bringing the property forward for the historic designation. So while I can't speak to what other communications you may be getting from the urban district or from DPS, those are really unique to their offices. Any other permitting issues that they may have, this is my guess as to why they are contacting you. There might be other issues at the property that those agencies are seeking to remedy by contacting you by mail.
One thing that might be useful, one of our commissioners, Commissioner Doman, was asking if there were some environmental issues, I believe,
We did the
were a concern last time we were here, and it might be helpful to us, or Commissioner Doman at least, if you could address that. Have they been addressed? Any of the environmental issues in the building?
Yes, we did.
We are, and that's ongoing. That's not going to be something that's going to be remedied in matters of months. It's going to take years. And that was the whole point of just the best way to, and what the Department of Environment recommended was the best way to just get rid of it would be to just dig up and have it, just gone. But now we have to go through testing and all these, even if you want to continue to use the property, there's a whole bunch of other stuff that has to be done that's going to be ongoing for a very long time at a very high cost.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Can I say something?
I beg your pardon?
Can I say something?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, sure.
Where I come from, from Africa, and when you buy something, if you pay for that thing, that anything is yours. I don't have any idea. Somebody comes walk to that place and, oh, you can't do this. This has to be historic or antique. But now, one thing, it's already rented, that place. When we rented, it was so hectic. And who rented that place? They didn't know that. They put the paint, they put the outside paint, they spend a lot of money. I don't know. I'm not driving always with that street. I don't know that they did. And everything is changed now. And I don't know why we're suffering, why I'm suffering, why I'm getting all that later. And, I work hard to get that place. I work hard to do something to that place. And why do I pay for the attorney $550 an hour? Or I don't know why everybody is trying to make us suffer. And there was a lady here. She came to that store, and she said that, oh, this place couldn't hold by a minority. If the minority not taking this place, by now it should be developed and it should be good. And people, they are coming, everybody are coming to that place, and this is something instead of encourage us. Oh, you did that, you did good. There are too many people coming and say something and leave. And please do something and let us stop me to suffer. That's the only thing I said, and thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask
I beg your pardon?
Can I
Did you
ask a
have,
question?
Commissioner Doman?
Yeah, if I gather right from your testimony, you said you rented it out and the renter painted it?
Yes.
You, as the owner, did not paint it, is that correct?
Yeah.
You did not know that they were going to paint it?
At the same time, I know when people are telling me, I know that. I drive that way, or if I go to that place every day, I could know, but I didn't know. And I saw but they were asking me to clean up the place. I said yes. I didn't know that, they are going to paint the outside, the inside, and so on.
It has undergone a significant change, that's for sure. A lot of what I consider significant features of the bold colors is gone, and the clear glass that has been stated as one of the architectural features is now covered with posters for you have a hairdresser or somebody's renting it. A lot of it has changed, I think, significantly from what we saw a couple months ago. Whenever you first appeared, looks completely different anyway. So I was just curious if you had a hand in the painting of it or not, and you indicate no. Thank you.
Okay. I didn't know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, Commissioner Burdett.
And who was responsible for taking down the original sign panels?
There was a sign there, and they thought that I was asking them, why do they do that? Because, there is no whalers anymore. There is no dry cleaning there anymore. They think that they could put their sign, and they did. And I rented them. I didn't put any limit. I didn't put any limit. Oh, don't do that, don't do this. I didn't do that. Who rented, the agent rented them. I'm not the one who rented that place. And they put the sign there. And I didn't ask them. And they didn't ask me. And even the next door, the restaurant, is going to put the sign under that now. And after I got the letter, like, this is with a certified and something, when I got that, I told them, don't do that, and get a permit.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
You are welcome.
If there are no more questions, we'll now ask Deborah Chalfie to come forward. Yes, you can. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming. Yeah. Ms. Chalfie, you could state your name for the record and your organization, and you'll have 5 minutes.
Great, thank you. Good evening, Chairman Sutton and members of the Historic Preservation Commission. I'm Deborah Chalfie I'm the Preservation Chair of the Art Deco Society, and we appreciate the opportunity to testify today in support of an amendment to the master plan for Weller's Dry Cleaning and its signage. I understand that in addition to our statement, you may have also received statements from the DC chapter of Docomomo, from Preservation Maryland, the Silver Spring Historical Society, and Montgomery Preservation, Inc. I hope that you got those, and if not, you may have gotten others as well. As you know, the Art Deco Society of Washington is a nonprofit membership organization covering the Washington, D.C. region. Our mission is to foster awareness of, celebrate, and preserve the architectural, decorative, industrial, and cultural arts of the Art Deco era and adjacent modern movements of the 20th century. ADSW supported the provision on protecting Wellers in the downtown Silver Spring sector plan, and we were very excited to testify here this past September in support of listing Wellers in the locational atlas. The staff's report and memorandum before you today make clear that the justification for protecting Wellers as a historic resource has not changed since September, and everything ADSW said in our prior testimony still holds with equal force. Wellers is a fabulous specimen of Googie architecture that is rare in Montgomery County and meets the legal criteria for protection. While the substantive case for the master plan amendment has not diminished, we cannot ignore the elephant in the room. Since September, the owners and/or tenant have diminished the appearance of the building by obscuring its colorful porcelain panels and brick with beige paint, and they have altered the signage by removing Weller's sign panels from their metal frames. The panels appear to be missing, and we would greatly appreciate it if the HPC would ask the owners where the panels are.
Sort of did.
To be clear, the entire community supports having this wonderful historic building be reused by a new small business. And fixing up the interior to adapt to that business, totally understandable. However, while the building's architecture and sign are distinctive enough that Wellers remains an established and visual presence in the community, there can be no question that the owners and tenant have temporarily masked a colorful, eye-catching building under a dreary cloud of beige. Thankfully, all of the changes are superficial and reversible. Paint can be removed from brick. It can also be removed from the porcelain enamel panels, or the panels can be replaced with like-kind materials. Glass can be replaced, and even the former sign panels, if they still exist, could be refurbished or, if need be, replicated. Thus, though regrettable and entirely preventable, the owners' and tenants' changes have not erased the property's historic structural features. They have, however, made the preservation task harder in this sense. In order to restore Wellers to its former googie glory, that was hard to say, at some point in the future, the time and cost that will be required to remove the paint and replace parts that have been removed will be greater than it otherwise needed to have been. One more point. This unfortunate blighting of Wellers should never have happened. The owners and their attorney were fully aware that this property was valued by the community and by county government, and that the process for protecting it as a historic resource had already begun. You had voted on your recommendation, which was already forwarded to the planning board and scheduled for action in late October. Yet within just a few days of that hearing being delayed due to turmoil within the planning board and in disregard of the proceeding already underway, the owners made and/or permitted unfortunate alterations to the exterior. In our written statement, we urge HPC to make several asks of the owners. Where are the panels? What kind of paint was used? And to do all it can to ensure Wellers receives immediate attention. However, clearly more needs to be done. Over the long term, the type of circumvention of the county's process that occurred here should never happen again. The historic preservation process necessitates a consideration of varied interests and involves several government entities. This takes time. Parties should not be able to short-circuit that process while it is occurring. Our written statement discusses how DC law provides an immediate pause on any changes as soon as an application is filed with the Historic Preservation Review Board. If a person then alters or diminishes that resource, they are required to restore it to its prior appearance. Criminal penalties also apply in the case of willful violations. We think Montgomery County's law should be reformed to do the same. We commend the staff and the HPC for your continuing efforts to preserve this googie gem that is Wellers, and we thank you for your consideration of our views. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Chalfie? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have another Helen Wilkes. Thank you. If you could state your name for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes. Are you with an association, or are you speaking as an individual?
Representing myself,
3 minutes. Thank you.
yes. So I am a resident of the Kensington Historic District. Name is Helen Wilkes, and I am a resident of the Historic District, as stated, and chair of the LAP there. And I'm also a member of the AIA Potomac Valley and a former president in 2012. And as such, maybe speaking in the spirit of Mr. Engelhardt, nobody else here is going to do that, I guess. But I'm also here as an admirer of Googie architecture, which has been, we have a gas station in Kensington that some of us wish that we could save, but there's no real good hook for that. But its expression, both in Kensington and Silver Spring, as exuberant architecture, it's so completely unique that I think it's so important in this case to preserve this particular building. When I was 10 years old, growing up in Raleigh, North Carolina, I had the exciting opportunity to come and visit a friend of the family in Silver Spring all by myself. I'm the fifth of seven. And it was so exciting to be here and to go to Washington and D.C. I remember going to the National Gallery and seeing the Washington Monument. In Silver Spring, I remember the architecture incredibly. I didn't know anything about the fact that someday I would become an architect, but it was a sort of awakening. The character, the personality of Silver Spring was so unique and different that it captured my attention. Recognizing there has been a series of unfortunate occurrences on the path to this designation, with the most recent one being the sort of blanding down of the building by being painted recently, as if to erase the personality of the building. Well, the bones, obviously, we're all aware, are still there and can be revived. But really, I'm here just to speak in support of this designation. I don't want to prolong this testimony. I do intend to speak more fully at the planning board hearing, and I just want to say that I support it. One feels empathy for the owners in this circumstance, certainly, but I do hope that it will continue on the path to designation. That's all.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Ms. Wilkes? Okay. I will open it up for our, yes.
Mr. Chair and members of the commission, again, this is Rebecca Ballo with the staff. I wanted to enter some additional information into the record in response to a question from the commissioners and then the response from the property owner regarding the environmental contamination on the site, just to be as precise as we could be in giving you all of the information. So I had been emailing back and forth the week of November the 14th with Mr. Brian Dietz, who is the chief of the State Assessment and Remediation Division with the Maryland Department of the Environment. And the questions were very pointed and wanted to get at whether or not whether MDE considered the most recent testing to be sufficient, and whether or not it was essentially safe for a retail business to be operating on the site, with customers coming back and forth. And actually, my emails with him dated to as early as the first week in November. But on November the 17th, he wrote back to me with the following response. Ms. Ballo, the Maryland Department of Environment Land Restoration Program received preliminary indoor air sampling results for the 8237 Fenton Street building yesterday afternoon. 4 indoor air samples were collected from the building on November 4th under the terms of an MDE LRP approved sampling plan and yielded results that were well below the MDE commercial use screening value, 180 micrograms per cubic meter, for the contaminant of concern, tetrachloroethene, PCE. The highest PCE concentration measured was 54.3 micrograms per cubic meter. Based on these results, the MDE has no objection to the building being operated as a retail business. So there was no communication from MDE that the building needed to be demolished, that the site needed to be excavated, or that any other, physical, alterations were necessary to bring the site into compliance to safely offer a retail business. It is my understanding that further testing will be necessary. There might be items for future compliance, but the MDE did not have concerns at this time about the building being safe for the general public or for the retail establishment to operate.
Thank you very much. It's very helpful.
Question.
Commissioner Doman, you have a question?
Commissioner Doman, has the owner been notified of the results that you just gave us?
I presume yes, because it was the owner who submitted this information to the state, and then the state, Mr. Brian Dietz, was reporting back to many interested parties, including the county government.
So they should be knowledgeable and should have received a letter like you did.
Well, I received an email. The information came from the owner to the state under the terms of whatever compliance plan that he has.
Okay.
That's the best that I can answer the question.
Open it up to discussion or to a motion would be acceptable as
Can
well.
I ask a question then?
Yes, you may.
Yeah, okay.
Or,
is
actually,
it-
this is not question time. This is you have.
This is Commissioner Doman. And in previous reviews, we have said that the commission is not concerned about the outside color of a house. Like, we do not specify that a certain historic property has to be painted in a certain way. Does the Weller dry cleaning property also fall under a freedom of paint that, because we do not make a homeowner, your house has to be painted a certain color. We don't say that. Are we saying now that the Weller's got to be painted white and red and white and red in order to be considered historic again?
No, that's not what the designation would be moving forward. The designation moving forward is for preservation of the property as it is. If there's a future property owner who wants to restore the building, that would be obviously more than welcomed, I'm sure, by the Historic Preservation Commission. But the designation would be for the building in its present form and design. And we, as noted in the staff report, staff still feels that this property meets the same designation criteria that we nominated under to begin with. Obviously, there are alterations, but the character-defining form of the building, including its roof form, the contrast between the light open building to the stone section, all these parts remain intact. And so, if there's a future owner or the present owner ever wants to explore restoration, if this building was to be designated, that is something that would be reviewed by the HPC to make sure it's complying with best practices.
I had something else, but I forgot.
Any other comments in our discussion period? Okay.
I'd like to make a motion if the staff could bring up the recommendations so it's a little easier to remember on the screen. This. Okay. I make a motion that, based on staff recommendations, that the Historic Preservation Commission finds that the Weller's Dry Cleaning meets the design criteria as outlined in 24A-3 of the County Code, that we recommend that the Planning Board list Weller's Dry Cleaner on the Locational Atlas and Index of Historic Sites, and additionally, that we recommend that the Planning Board recommends in its transmission to the County Council that the Weller's Dry Cleaning be listed in the Master Plan for Historic Preservation and in the Locational Atlas and Index of Historic Sites.
Do I have a second?
It's Commissioner Haynes, I'll second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
Can I abstain?
That was the next thing.
Okay.
Any abstentions?
This is Commissioner Doman, I abstain.
Thank you very much. So we have 6 ayes and 1 abstention, correct? Thank you very much. And thank you for coming tonight. The next item on our agenda is the historic area work permits. And we would like to start by having the work permits that we believe can be expedited. And if there's anyone here to testify in opposition to any of these, if you could contact staff here to let them know that you are here to testify, that would be good. And first of all, have these projects been advertised?
Yes, they were in the November 30th issue of the Washington Times.
Thank you very much. And for openers here,
I'm sorry, Chair Sutton, it was the November 23rd edition, not the November 30th.
Thank you. Correction noted. In case any of you have an agenda here, we will not be hearing item A tonight. I don't think that was corrected on the agenda before the meeting. But item 2B at 11 Park Avenue, Tacoma Park. I'm sorry? 118, I'm sorry. 118 Park Avenue, I can't read. I transpose numbers pretty easily. Number 2D at 7209 MacArthur Boulevard in Bethesda. Project 1E at 7 West Kirk Street, Chevy Chase. And Project 2F at 4101 Manor Road, Chevy Chase.
Mr. Chair, hearing no objections, I move that we approve the following historic area work permits in accordance with the staff reports based upon the record before us and in consideration of the recommendations of the local advisory panels, including the conditions recommended by staff. HOP number 1013194 at 118 Park Avenue, Tacoma Park. HOP number 1008960 at 7209 MacArthur Boulevard, Bethesda. Hop number 1012774 at 7 West Kirk Street, Chevy Chase, and hop number 1001591 at 4101 Manor Road, Chevy Chase.
Is there a second?
This is Commissioner Haynes, I'll second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All these are approved, and thank you for bringing projects to us that could easily be approved. This makes our life easier. We will now hear case number 2C at 7209 Holly Avenue, Tacoma Park. Is there a staff report on this project?
Yes, there is, Mr. Chair. This is a staff report for 7209 Holly Ave in Tacoma Park. It is a circa 1890s Queen Anne-style house that's designated as an outstanding resource to the Tacoma Park Historic District. Although the district does not identify any, does not highlight any specific characteristics in its designation. This is to be reviewed under Chapter 24A, the Tacoma Park Design Guidelines, and the Secretary of the Interior's Standards for Rehabilitation. And the proposal is to remove a front-facing basement door, excavate and underpin the foundation at the rear, and reconstruct the basement wall with new windows and doors, and construct a screened-in porch. This is the building as viewed from the street. You can see in front the side projection. There's a porch with a basement level below. That's where the door is. It's obscured both by the porch and the grade and some landscaping currently. This is the door in question. It's the lower of the two there. This is the house viewed from the right, and the area where the screened-in porch is going is here where the cursor is. This is the rear of the house. The porch was open until 1997. The homeowners received a hop to enclose the rear porch as a family room, and that was unanimously approved by the HPC. Additionally, the underside of what was the porch was finished to provide a fully enclosed space upstairs, so that's been a modification to the rear. And then there's a brick patio behind the wall underneath the existing porch, and that's part of the area that'll be excavated. So what you see on the left is the existing plan for the rear basement. There's currently a kitchen and a living room and a bathroom. The proposal will turn that into a library with a staircase. You see the bifold doors and casement windows, and they're maintaining the existing columns for the porch, and the proposal is to put a Trex decking system in there. And I'm sorry, and this is the door in question that will be removed and closed in with German shiplap siding to match the house. From the rear, you can see the changes is, this shows the screen, so you don't see the doors and windows, but the existing doors, stairs, and 3 windows will be removed. This is the left elevation. Existing is the upper left, and then proposed. You can see how much the grade drops off on the site. So staff finds the front-facing basement door is not a significant historic feature. It's under the existing porch, and the stairs may be removed, and its opening blocked up with matching wood shiplap siding under 24A8B2. Staff finds that more flexibility is warranted to changes for all categories of resource in the rear in the Tacoma Park Historic District, and staff finds the proposed rear alteration will not impact the existing footprint. Staff finds that removing the rear door and windows will impact the fabric of the historic house, but will not have an impact on the surrounding district, and staff recommends the HPC approve the rear wall and foundation removal under 24A8B2. Again, they're excavating 2 feet 1 inch from the rear. This elevation has been underneath a porch since at least 1927. You see, this is the 1927 Sanborn, which shows a porch at the rear, a single-story porch at the rear. Staff finds that the clad doors and windows are appropriate under the design guidelines and 24A8B2. Staff finds that removing the brick patio and enclosing the porch with wood frame screening is also appropriate under the design guidelines and 24A8B2. However, staff does not find the proposed Trex decking to be an acceptable substitute material for wood. Staff has been relatively consistent on this. Staff recommends that the HPC include a condition for approval that the rear porch decking be wood. That was in the staff report. What wasn't in the staff report is removing and relaying the existing brick on a new substrate would be a repair in kind and would not require a hop. And relaying that would be eligible for a tax credit. So that's another option that the applicant could select moving forward. So staff recommends that the HPC approve the hop with the identified condition under 24A8B2 and D, the Tacoma Park Historic District Design Guidelines and Standards 2, 9, and 10. And with that, I will answer any questions.
Any questions?
I have a
Commissioner
question.
Pelletier.
This is Commissioner Pelletier. Do we or you have any jurisdiction over the back to make that condition of not using the Trex?
I mean, the HPC has the authority to review and approve all work on the exterior of a property, whether it's visible from the right-of-way or not.
Okay.
So typically, areas that are less visible or not visible are given wider latitude to make changes, but the HPC always has the authority to make that determination for any property in a historic
Okay.
district.
Thanks.
Commissioner Haynes.
Is the footprint changing, or are they simply removing the existing foundation wall?
The footprint is not changing
It's
at
not
all.
changing. Are the columns on that rear facade, are they original, or there's something that they were added at a later period?
So they were modified in the 1997 hop, but they were retained. So the decorative work was added in the late 90s, but they were the existing columns then. Whether they were changed prior to that, I don't know. The notes in the drawings, and there's a representative from the design team, the notes in the drawings indicate that the columns will be underpinned as necessary. So I think that's one of the sort of outstanding questions for this project.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. I now would ask the owner and representative, Greg Delfonso and Jerry Levine, or Levine, I hope I got the name pronounced correctly. And if you could state your name for the record, that would be great. And you have 7 minutes. You can do testimony, answer questions, whatever your preference.
I'm Greg Delfonso, and I'm the designer of the project.
And I'm Jerry Levine, owner of the Levine Group Architects and Builders Incorporated.
Thank you.
He's the contractor partner. We're prepared to accept the staff recommendation on the wood. We're trying to figure out which species we're going to use, but we're fine with using wood for the back deck, and the owner is as well. Other than that, I wanted to clarify a point on the underpinning. We are actually not planning. We're currently not planning on underpinning those columns. Our plan and our assumption is that they will be able to support the additional load of the deck. And so part of the project is that we're going to dig a small test pit adjacent to one of the columns and determine, have our structural engineer determine if they will indeed support that load. And then if not, he said we would need a 27 by 27 footing underneath those that we would then underpin with. Do you have any other comments?
We're assuming that the existing footing underneath each of those columns is at least 12 inches by 12 inches. It could be more than that. So the net increase on either side, either direction, all the directions of the existing footing might be about 7 inches more than what is there now. So it's a small increase, if it's even necessary. We did another project further down on Holly Avenue a couple of years ago.
7305 Holly Avenue.
Right, where we had to, it was more complicated in terms of tree preservation and such. And, we used an air spade to carefully dig out what we had to dig out. And if necessary, for this piece, we would do the same thing. You know, there's a tree that's not too far from one of the columns. And so we have to take care of it.
Else?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Unless you guys
Thank
have
you.
questions for us.
Any questions?
It's Commissioner Doman.
Commissioner Doman?
Okay. My concern has been kind of what you've touched on already about the columns on the rear deck, okay? And in the drawings, you don't show any real detail. Right now, there's a brick patio underneath there, and you walk out, and you got a couple of steps to go down, you're on this brick patio. The new design brings things lower, and then you walk out onto a wood deck, okay? And the commission now is calling for, you had specified Trex, and then now the commission's calling for wood. What I don't see, and I guess this would be another detail, but I don't see any framing detail. I don't see anything on your drawings that we have before us in the submittal that shows we're going to frame this in and how you're going to carry you got to put something across the rear 4 columns to hold up the joists that go over to the house. I don't see anything in there that shows this. Or as another feature that was added, that you could use brick. Right now you got brick in there, and you could lower the whole thing down and put the brick back in again. I guess my concern is also there's a tree in there, and I was hoping that you would have shown a plot plan, because from the drawing that we have in front of us here, that tree to me looks awful close to some of the columns, and you had indicated that you may have to, you're going to do some exploratory research, which is standard. You go down and take a look at what's holding up the columns on the thing. But if there is a problem, you're going to have to go in and put, you said 27 by 27 footer underneath everything, which is understandable. I'm just concerned, do you know exactly how close that tree is to where you would be excavating if you do have to excavate? Is it within a foot or 2 feet, or is it right on top of it? Do you know that answer?
Yeah,
I don't know exactly how far. It's definitely farther than a foot.
I mean, but the drawing looks like it's right on top of the deck, or where you would be excavating anyway. This drawing that's showing right now.
Sure.
You know, I was kind of hoping that you would have a site plan that would show, because we're always concerned about maintaining the integrity of the trees that's on the property, and obviously you're aware of this. I just wanted to see that it was addressed in your proposal, what you would do.
Yeah, we currently are not at that stage yet. We're still waiting for our structural engineering to come back.
So you may or may, and the other, I mean, you guys are probably all aware of this, but if you tear out all the brick that's underneath it looks like to me there's some concrete block, and there must be some fill put in there, and you have a slope on this, the way it looks to me in the picture. If you're going to have to lay all of this down very low if you put a wood deck in, and it'll be very close to the ground. And my experience is wood in close proximity to the earth is very susceptible to moisture damage coming up from the ground, you know. And obviously you know all this, but you'd have to be you have to excavate down far enough, a vapor barrier, then gravel or something on top of that, and then an air gap in there in order to protect the underside. And I've seen decks that were done like this, done with cypress. Now cypress that's been double primed and lasts maybe 5 years. I mean, the moisture can be a big issue for you in this situation, so I'm just kind of cautioning you on your decision and your choices. I think a brick might be nice too, and go back to the brick. But if you want to use wood, which is the recommendation of the HPC, I personally would not use wood, but that's a different story. Okay, so I would like to see either to the staff or to us some information about the proximity of the trees to where your excavation, if you're going to do excavation, where you're at. It's pretty close, yes, yeah. And so that was my concern is moisture on the underside of your deck if you do wood, and being very careful to save this tree and not damage the roots on the tree. Okay, so those are my concerns. Thank you.
Absolutely, and I understand that we won't be able to get a permit from Montgomery County without going through the Tacoma Park Arborist anyway, so we will be working on that.
Thank you. Any other questions? Discussion? Anybody like to kick off the discussion? If not, do I have a motion?
This is Commissioner Burdett. I make a motion that we approve HOP number 1011274 at, oh, I'm sorry, I take that back. HOP number 1013352 at 7209 Holly Avenue, Tacoma Park.
This is Commissioner Pelletier, a second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Just a quick clarification, was that with the staff recommended condition or without?
Let me revise this. I make the motion that we approve HOP number 1013352 at 7209 Holly Avenue, Tacoma Park, with the staff's recommendations and conditions.
Second, do you agree?
This is Commissioner Pelletier, I agree.
Thank you. Now, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm opposed.
Commissioner Doman is opposed, so we have 6 in favor and 1 opposed. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your consideration.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is a preliminary consultation, which is item number 3A at 6950 Carroll Avenue, Tacoma Park.
Chair Sutton, this is Rebecca Ballo. I'm going to ask the commission to pause one moment and to pause the live hearing. We have some testimony coming in over the Teams virtual hearing, and I just need to get this individual checked in.
Thank you. Is this the one that you gave me here?
Yes, Chair
Okay.
Sutton.
Okay, thank you.
Chair Sutton, we are back live.
Thank you very much. So again, the case that we are looking at for preliminary consultation is item number 3A on the agenda at 6950 Carroll Avenue, Tacoma Park. Is there a staff report?
Yes, there is, Chair Sutton. So the staff report for 6950 Carroll Avenue It is the old Tacoma Park Bank building. You see it in front of you. It's at the intersection of Carroll Avenue and Willow. It was constructed in 1927 and is an outstanding resource to the Tacoma Park Historic District. And if you look at the map in front of you, you'll see that the boundaries of the Tacoma Park Historic District were routed to specifically include this building, while the surrounding structures to the north and west were excluded. Opened in 1927. We have dates to prove that. It's a dream realized. The standards of review for this project are Chapter 24A, the Secretary of the Interior's Standards for Rehabilitation, and the Tacoma Park Historic District Design Guidelines. Prior to about 3 years ago, this project would have been reviewed by the Facade Advisory Board. 3 years, 2 years? 2-ish years ago. It would have been reviewed by the Tacoma Park Facade Advisory Board. However, that's a body that no longer exists, so we don't have their feedback moving forward. This photo is from approximately 2.5 years ago when this was a Bank of America. You see the existing ATM, or the previously existing ATM, and the signage and the entablature. So from the building's architecture, you can see there's a clear hierarchy of elevation. The front here has Tacoma Park Bank and the entablature. It has the only building entrance. Moving around Willow, you see the same level of design. However, the entablature is blank and there are no entrances. Continuing along Willow Ave, you see the rear elevations, the non-street facing elevations are in brick. The cornice is stripped away. However, the same steel windows are used throughout. This is the view from the parking lot of the rear of the building. We'll come back to that a little bit later. And then you see along an alley where there's just a half window, and you can see the building next to it outside the historic district had a side addition or side rear addition as a loading dock. So the applicant proposes to convert the building to a new use. It's been vacant for the last 18 months or so. Construct a new entrance on the rear, relocate the HVAC system and units to the roof, and add mechanical screening, and construct a building addition for additional loading and mechanical systems. The applicant also proposes to restore the window opening that was blocked in to accommodate the ATM. So the new entrance will be located on the rear. It's actually a perspective that is only visible from outside of the historic district. You can see it's a blank section of wall now, and the applicant proposes to put a steel access door there. Currently, there's only one means of egress, which means it doesn't comply with code. That would be good functioning for a bank where you want to limit access, but when the building is heavily occupied, you will need that secondary means of egress. The second item is the HVAC relocation. You can see the units are installed on the ground level along the rear. The applicant proposes to relocate those to the roof and screen them with perforated mechanical screens. Again, the building addition, the applicant proposes to remove the lower half of this window here. See highlighted, this window is visible from Willow Avenue to provide access from the new addition. Addition viewed here in elevation and here in section. One thing that you'll note is that from the parking lot, the floor plates don't line up with grade. So the proposal here is to create a loading dock in the addition, and then there will be a mechanical lift just inside of the building that will provide access both to the basement and to the main floor off of the loading dock. And you see by enlarging the window opening, the applicants will be able to utilize that opening with some machinery and not have to create any more perforations than that one. The exterior of the addition is profiled vertical metallic panel, and above that are additional mechanical systems that are also proposed to be screened in the perforated metal. So this information is not included in the staff report, but from Preservation Briefs 14, which is guidance from the National Park Service about adding additions to mid-sized buildings. They say a new addition to a historic building should preserve the building's historic character. To accomplish this and meet the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation, a new addition should preserve significant historic materials, features, and form, be compatible, and be differentiated from the historic. Additionally, there are some bullet points also to consider. A new addition should be simple and unobtrusive in design and should be distinguished from the historic building. A recessed connector, which this design has, can help to differentiate the new from the old. A new addition should not be highly visible from the public right-of-way. A rear or secondary elevation is usually the best location. The construction materials and the color of the new addition should be harmonious with the historic building materials, and the new addition should be smaller than the historic building. It should be subordinate both in size and design to the historic building. Moving along, staff finds that the building's one point of egress does not meet current code and at least one new door is required. And staff finds that the location of the proposed door is the least visible placement and would recommend the HPC approve the new door as a hop. Staff finds that relocating the HVAC units from the parking lot to the roof is a desirable alteration that would improve the building's overall appearance. However, adding a visual element to the roof is problematic as it can compete with the hierarchy and highly decorative nature of the Beaux-Arts style. I'll note that in conversations with the applicant, the screen presented was basically the highest proposed, that the height would depend on the specific HVAC system selected, and that was still something that had not been identified, and the size would be adjusted accordingly. Staff finds that the screening should be lowered to the maximum extent so that it is not visible from the public right-of-way, and if this is not possible to lower and consolidate the screening so that it is not visible, the HPC should discuss whether it's less obtrusive for the mechanical units to be screened at grade. Staff recognizes that there is currently no easily accessible access to the roof and a new rooftop door is required. But staff has significant reservations about the appropriateness of the proposed metal screening. Is the highly reflective metal screening a compatible material for the subject property, and is the size and placement of the screening acceptable, or is any screening necessary? That may be something driven by code. Staff is unaware of that and was unable to get an answer in time for tonight's hearing. Staff finds the proposed addition's location is on a preferred elevation. The addition will be visible from Willow Ave, though it's through the existing parking lot. This will require removing the lower half of a historic steel window. If you remember that elevation, the lower portion of the rightmost window is blocked by the existing bank vault, which will be retained on the interior. And staff finds the size of the proposed addition, which is 33 feet 6 inches wide by 29 feet 6 inches deep by 22 feet 9 inches tall, will not overwhelm the size and scale of the historic building. And as with the mechanical screening, staff does not find the shiny metallic materials to be compatible with the masonry building and seeks input from the HPC on that. So finally, staff requests feedback regarding staff's assessment of the egress door, the appropriateness of relocating the HVAC system, including its placement on the roof and the proposed material screening, the appropriateness of the proposed addition, its placement to the rear of the building, the dimensions, and the proposed exterior materials. And staff will answer any questions that the commission has at this time.
Any questions for staff? Okay. Thank you. I have the project owner, Jeff Harner, is that correct? And if you would like to bring any other staff, that's fine. You're welcome to do that. And you'll have 7 minutes. And if you, again, you've seen this, so you sort of know the drill. Just each of you state your name for the record, and we will continue. Thank you.
I'm Jeff Harner. I'm potential new owner of the project.
I'm Christopher Pelly. I'm with Core Architecture and Design, project architects.
Nate Grunendijk, also potential new owner of the project.
Thank you. You're welcome to do a presentation, answer questions, both.
So this is officially our first public acknowledgement of this project, and we're happy to be here too. We spent a lot of time doing our own research, both on the previous submissions and to try and get this project as close to what the Historic Commission would like it to be. And what attracted us to this building, I'm a Tacoma Park resident. I've been there for almost 13 years. So I've been driving by this building or riding my bike by this building for just about every day of those 13 years, as that it really aligns with our philosophy as a business, as a distillery. I see Lorraine's name. She probably doesn't remember me, but about 10 or 11 years ago, I sent them an email asking, because I was doing research about apple growing in Tacoma Park and Montgomery County in general, if she knew of any apple trees that of this particular name, because about 100 years ago, some people submitted apples grown in Tacoma Park to the USDA, and they're now hung up in the agricultural library in the USDA, and I saw Tacoma Park. So that I've been interested in that part of the history of Tacoma Park for a long time, and this building is such an awesome resource, and it's currently being used for some holiday markets, and the response to the community to having this building that's been vacant for almost 2 years now. Actually, I think we're past 2 years. Having it occupied once again and used for a new use, I think is just a terrific opportunity to keep its life going as a continued resource for the community.
I will just add a couple of points to the staff's presentation. Conceptually, the idea is not to remove the lower half of the window in the rear. It is actually to replace the eye patch on the willow side with a full window and restore the facade with the identical window that is in the rear, leaving then a half window in the rear next to the adjacent half window, at which point we can use the remaining lower portion of the masonry opening without adjusting the masonry opening for that stitch into the building. The other sort of, objective there of doing that is to really keep the high. I mean, this is a distillery as opposed to a bank, so we will have loading, and there will be a different kind of ingress egress of material into this building to keep the sort of high intensity ingress egress of materials in this sort of holding bay portion of the building that's added on, and not kind of put that intense use on the existing building in a structure inside. Additionally, that as was also noted, we're in a very preliminary stage here, and the hope was that we would come in and have a conversation and really kind of talk this through and not sort of spring something bizarre and weird on everyone. And so the idea to actually put rooftop units for the building mechanical units on the roof for the building. We've set back at a 2-to-1 ratio from both street facades, which is where we kind of got that 16 feet setback with an 8-foot-ish high mechanical screen. That's all coming from sort of the standards that are used elsewhere, like in DC. Most notably on like Pennsylvania Avenue, on the major avenues, there is a more rigorous setback for mechanical penthouses than 1-to-1 ratio. That all is subject to trying to minimize the amount of mechanical that we would obviously want to have on the roof. But we're just sort of trying to find an acceptable envelope for that so that we can have a good basis for selecting equipment as the progress of the project goes on. Additionally, the addition is meant for the use of the new building. So the mechanical section of the addition on the roof of the addition is for the distilling equipment. The rooftop equipment is for the building conditioning. And the idea there is that in the future, plug your ears, in the future, should this not be a distillery, that the building itself would still retain the ability to sort of heat and cool itself, with modern HVAC without the addition. The addition could be peeled back entirely and not be reliant upon that portion of the building to still maintain the building itself. And that's about all I have.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the owner representative? Commissioner Pelletier.
I'm trying to understand what you were talking about in the back with you're taking out the window and sort of moving it around to where the ATM used to be. Is the level of the windowsill on the parking lot, you're not cutting out the brick to bring it down to the floor?
The masonry opening is not widened, is only.
So you are
brought
cutting?
Down. Correct.
Oh, okay, I didn't understand that. So yeah, you're keeping the width and taking it down to the floor.
Exactly. So,
Okay.
the sort of beautiful thing about the windows is that they are they are exactly identical. The only difference being that on the interior of the Willow Avenue side, there's a mezzanine, so there's just a glazed-in steel panel where there is a glass panel on the rear facade. Other than that, it's sort of a, one-to-one switcheroo.
So are you using the same, are you going to replicate it on the side, or are you using the same window?
The plan is to use the same window.
Really?
Great.
Is that going to do that?
Is who going to do it?
It just looks a little dicey. Like, I don't see a good breaking point. I don't know. I mean,
They're literally the same masonry opening, so.
Oh, no, I
the
believe
window itself
that.
would come
I'm
out.
just-
You take the glazing out first, remove the frames, and then reglaze it on the other side.
Okay.
The only piece that would be, that would need to be added is there is actually a stone sill on the Willow Street side that has been removed that would need to get replicated in order
Right.
to make it match the other two windows.
Okay. That just seems like a very idealistic, I mean, I like the idea. I really do. I just, sort of practicality makes me wonder if you're actually going to be able to do it. But I would be all for restoring that side window. So good luck with that.
Any other questions?
I've got a question.
Oh, thank you.
Commissioner
This-
Galway. When I look at the amount of screening, and this comes from a mechanical engineer who encloses a lot of mechanical equipment on the roof, it seems like you've presented it in a very large area. And it leads me to wonder, and I appreciate the idea of trying to put the equipment there in a location that will provide for the building if it reverts to some other type of occupancy at some future day. So I think that's a positive. But I see an awful lot of screening for equipment that, with my experiences, would not have to be as large as what you're demonstrating. And so then it leads me to wonder, just from a function, from a program standpoint, what are you envisioning actually being, not in the loading dock and not in the addition, but is there a substantial HVAC load that you're expecting inside the building, or functionally, is there something going on there that would require a screen of that size, as you've shown on your sketches?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't engaged with a mechanical engineer for preliminary analysis. The volume of air in the building is large. And we also have a lot of glazing that we're going to be sort of confronted with when we come to our energy model. So things that keep me up at night. Like I said, we have just sort of wanted to show a maximum sort of extent based on the setbacks, not based on the mechanical equipment itself. This, when the hope is that we can kind of come to some consensus that we're okay with roof equipment in some capacity, so that we can kind of keep going down this route and make it smaller and smaller. the idea is really not to have anything competing up there, especially from, the most prominent sides. You know, whether it's a single rooftop unit and some other, split systems that are taking care of the other ancillary spaces. Most of the volume of the building is just one big sort of volume of air. And that's effectively how it's going to stay. With the distilling itself happening in the, in the building, there is some more intensive cooling load that we would anticipate than the bank use.
Understand, thanks.
Any other questions? Commissioner Haynes.
Could you speak about more what you plan to do for facade restoration, lighting, any of that sort of thing in your thinking?
Yeah, I think our general consensus is that there's too much light on the outside, and there's conduit everywhere, and that we would really want to pare that back a lot. No real, wishes for big flashing signs. Somehow the Bank of America signage was approved by someone at some point. Really the idea is that it looks very much, like the historic building that it was, which would mean, the two sconces on the side of the main entrance, and really not too much more. A lot of the lighting that's on the facade right now is all just like security, bank security lighting, and cameras and everything else anywhere. So we'd be stripping a lot of that conduit back. That would then lead to some level of repair of what was used to fasten those devices to the building. Most of them are not penetrations through the walls, but are actually just surface mounted, so that those should be some fairly discrete repairs that would happen.
And in terms of washing the stone, would that be part of the entablature really could use a good cleaning and restoration?
The photo is really very, it's a little mossier than I think it really is. It's like, it's pretty, I think it's a little cleaner than what is shown on the photo, but maybe it was just like a really rainy day. It's in pretty good shape, but I mean, a scrubbing would certainly happen.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Doman.
I have 3 very important questions. Number 1, what type of spirits will you be distilling?
That's interior, my man.
And number 2 is
You
when
took my question.
when do you open? Okay, so I want to know that. And number 3, are you saving the vault for your private labels? Okay.
I'll take these one at a time.
Okay.
So we currently have an open and operating distillery in Prince George's County in downtown Hyattsville. It's called Sang-Froid Distilling, Sang-Froid, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. We make a Maryland rye whiskey, and we do a lot of fruit brandies. Some of the fruit we grow ourselves, and we also source from local farms, and we do a couple styles of gin. And the third question, we will retain the vault. We're still trying to figure out exactly how we're going to incorporate that into the business operations, but it will be a component.
It could be a private tasting room, something like that.
That could be an option,
Okay.
sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Go ahead, please. Commissioner Pelletier.
This is Commissioner Pelletier. I'm kind of building on Commissioner Haynes' question. Are you going to contract with a historic preservation specialist or anything on doing some sort of survey of the building condition? Like if there are things that need, because a lot of times these buildings, they look pretty good, and then you start getting into it and there's a lot of point up, or there's certain things that end up needing to be done. So I'm curious what your strategy is for the historic preservation of the building.
Me? Core architecture, my spiel about core architecture and design and our incredible portfolio of historic property redevelopment and preservation in the District of Columbia and Maryland and Virginia. But as of now, we don't foresee that we would need any specialist really beyond sort of our working knowledge as architects in the region about the building as it is. We've done a sort of a preliminary full survey of the property. It's a strong building, and purpose built as a bank is very over-engineered for what our uses are really going to need. So from that perspective, there's really not too much restoration work beyond fixing what has been kind of done to it in a lot of ways. So I don't know if that really answers your question per se, but that's yes, yeah, and we have done. I personally have worked on Bank of Georgetown, 1800 I Street in downtown Washington, several historic properties that have had restoration scope as part of their the program.
I just want to make sure that restoration scope was part of the program. Thank you.
Commissioner Doman?
I actually have one question before we go, and it's very simple. Is my understanding correct that the current front entrance will not be an entrance to the building? Did I misunderstand that?
Current front entrance meets accessibility via a ramp that has been installed that you can sort of see in the photo. That's the primary entrance and will be used.
It will be the primary
as the
entrance.
primary
Okay.
entrance.
I don't know. Somehow I thought it was the back, but I didn't think that'd be
No,
really
yeah.
worthwhile. So thank you. Thank you very much.
The doors, everything are amazing, and with a little bit of WD-40, they'll be ready to go.
Great. Commissioner Doman.
Yes, Commissioner Doman. Do you envision signage of any sort to advertise that this is not a bank anymore, this is now such and such brewery? It would be on this. I'm just looking forward, what do you envision, a big sign above the temperature or something down low?
There is a flagpole. We talked about a flag. That could be fun. I mean, no, really,
We haven't talked in great depth about it, but something subtle is the way we're leaning, because you'll be able to see our equipment, which is its own sign through the windows from just about anywhere you're standing around the building.
Yeah, I mean, to that end, I mean, if you look at or know anything about sort of the Sancfroid branding, it's, as it is now, it's extremely elegant and it's very discreet and is certainly not anything that is sort of loud and shouting. So whether that's, I mean, it's very nice, so we haven't really gotten that far, but if it was anything, it would be pedestrian scale rather than sort of heroic.
Thank you.
Commissioner Pelletier.
Oh, one more question. Oh, now I forgot it. Oh, now I remember. Are you moving from Hyattsville, or is this going to be a second location for you?
So the plan is to expand manufacturing to this location. The location we're at in Hyattsville is very humble, we like to say, and our manufacturing or production processes, we hit capacity on day one 5 years ago when we opened
Oh, okay.
there. So.
And what's in the attic of this building? Is it habitable space?
No, it is, the roof is actually sloping forwards from the rear towards Carroll, and then the rain leaders on the inside are on the interior face of this facade. That is done essentially with wood trusses for the roof. It's not habitable, it's more of an attic.
Okay.
As being built prior to to roof insulation and to exteriorly over the roof, over the structure insulation. That was really the means of thermal protection for the building.
Okay.
When it was built. So there's nothing in there. And
You're not putting anything in
nah,
there.
There's really nothing. There's no real usable space inside of that.
Okay, thanks.
If there are no more questions,
Okay. One more question.
one more question.
Commissioner
All
Gall,
right.
Do you know what the structure of the roof is
It's
currently?
it's wood and steel, as far as we can tell. I mean, it's kind of
A steel purlin with a wood deck or a wood joist of some sort, or?
the ladder up there is well, it's not an easily accessible place. So from what we could see of it from poking our heads up there was that it was wood trusses. Most of the building is concrete and steel. So I'm imagining that there maybe just based on the interior spans that there is likely some steel girders in there as well.
So there may be some load considerations if you're adding equipment to the roof.
Yes.
That you'd have to look at.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Okay. If there are no more questions, I would welcome Lorraine Pearsall, who is standing by. Thank you for your patience. And you will have 5 minutes, and take it away.
Thank you. I am the Vice President of Historic Tacoma, and we are an LAP. And thank you, Chair Sutton, for allowing me to attend virtually. I greatly appreciate it. And I'm happy to meet the team. And actually, I do remember the question about apples. And B.F. Gilbert grew apples on his property. And so that was a very interesting connection. And thank you for bringing that up. It's hard for me to not be emotional about this building because it is remarkable that we have it. It was built in 1927, as Dan said. It was our second bank building at a cost of $175,000, which was an astronomical amount of money in those days. And it is a hallmark of our community, of our town growing up. It symbolizes that we had arrived, that we now were a commercial hub. We were not the tiny town anymore that was founded in 1883. And the owners of the officers rather of this building, they're pretty historic too. So E. Brooke Lee, who was the vice president of this bank, was related to Montgomery Blair and Preston Blair, which are extraordinary figures in our history in Maryland, as is E. Brooke Lee himself. And I just single him out. And so those individuals selected this grand, beautiful style to symbolize its importance to us. And the Beaux-Arts style of architecture, it is the only one that we have. It is our most important commercial historic resource. It's, as I say, it's amazing it is that we have it. I read the staff report and I agree with many of the concerns that staff raises, and I'm extremely worried about many of them. And so let me talk about them. the equipment on the roof is a major concern. Because of the importance of this resource, anything placed on the roof, if it is placed there at all, must not be visible from the public right-of-way, which includes Carroll and Willow. It is a very prominent structure on Willow as well. And so I have enormous concerns about the idea of putting the mechanicals on the roof rather than on the ground. And I'm not sure this would work. It's not that even they would compete with the building. They would utterly destroy the feelings and associations of that building. They just cannot be there. They cannot be seen. And I don't know how you're going to be able to really do that from the public right-of-way across the street. I just, that is my most worrisome point. And I agree with staff's concerns on that. And so serious thought needs to be given to putting mechanicals on the ground properly insulated with sound and whatever needs to happen, but to do it that way. The proposed screening for the roof in the building addition really is not compatible with the resource. And I agree with staff as well on this. And staff has mentioned in his report that the building next door had built a masonry addition, a brick addition. And that, of course, would work perfectly well for the proposed building in the rear, much better than what has been proposed, which is very jarring, even in the back of this building, this magnificent building. And I want to talk a moment of the importance of the rear view. So the rear view, the north elevation, it's still an important feature. It's very prominent. It's open to Willow Avenue, very visible, very important part of the streetscape. And so while it's not as refined with the limestone material and detailing as on the south and east views, it still presents a beautiful brick facade with its grand windows. Whatever's done here must be respectful on Willow. And a question I have when I look at the plans, I noticed that there will be an elevator in front of the third large window. And how will that affect, that's the visible window, how will that affect the view from there? Because those windows are still quite extraordinary. I also want to note that the building addition as shown on HPO3 is encroaching too closely to the third large window on this rear plane. And I would like to see that proposed building pulled further away from that grand window so it doesn't cramp it. I also wonder about it seems like there is that blocking a view of one of the front windows, and I don't know if anything could be done about that. I'm happy to hear that the windows are the right size in the back to do the restoration you need on the side. That was a question I had, and that is a relief to know, and I appreciate you doing that.
Ms. Pearsall, if you could sort of draw your comments to a conclusion, that would be great. Thank you.
Yes, and okay, I would just like the signage in terms of the anything you do. It sounds like you're being very sensitive so as not to mar the limestone surface of the front in any kind of signage or lighting, and it sounds like you'll be restoring some damage when you take some of the things off that's superfluous stuff that's on there, and I appreciate that very much. We do. So I guess if my time is up, one question, if I could quickly ask, is I know people have asked me about the noise of operations, including deliveries and forklift transferring of materials, and how that will affect the local community, which is right next door. And I don't know if you have any words to say about that here tonight. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Ms. Pearsall? We will try to ask that question for you, ma'am. Any questions
you.
for Ms. Pearsall? Thank you. So I will ask that question. Did you anticipate any substantial noise with your operation in the neighborhood?
So we currently operate on a downtown commercial strip in Hyattsville, and our neighbors are so close to us that if we were doing anything now that was loud or disruptive, we would hear about it. And we don't anticipate any additional noise with new production space. An electronic forklift makes not very much noise at all. Deliveries, yes. We would have deliveries, but not often, and we would always coordinate with our delivery folks to have them during business hours so they're not blocking streets or creating any additional disturbances or disruptions.
Thank you. At this point, we will start our deliberations, and let me just say, I don't know if you have been seen this before, what we do, but this is something that I think is unique, could be unique for what we do, because we will give you our feedback. We'll tell you what we think needs to be done with this building. You don't have to take anything we say. Usually it's not a bad idea, because eventually you'll come before us with a historic area work permit, and we'll pay attention to what we said. But we look at this as an opportunity for you to understand what we think about the building. And we have a lot of talent on our commission that will hopefully be able to help you. So with that, I will start off. Does anyone like to lead off here? Commissioner Burdett.
Very pleased that someone's coming forward with a practical, positive, and appreciated solution for this building, because it came before us a couple years ago. And I was fortunate this past weekend. I live not too far away, but I got to go into the Holiday Mart. And this is not an easy building to have ever gotten into if you weren't a member of the bank. So it was a lot of fun to get inside and be able to see the full volume of the space, and to appreciate in the future what that volume of space will mean as one of your customers. I'm sure they will appreciate the space as much as the early banking customers did back in the 20s and 30s. With that said, my concerns are the screening at the roof, the shiny metal. I think you're going to, need to, as Commissioner Galway recommended, determine what equipment you are going to need and how small you can get it, and then do some mock-ups on the roof of different materials and colors for the local LAP to see which is the least obtrusive material. Frequently architects, and I speak as one, say that, if it's shiny, it'll disappear like glass. Well, it never disappears. You're always seeing it. So I would recommend mock-ups for that. I think the new door is a great location to meet code for egress. That is the least damaged location, and I support the rest. The addition off the back, this is a wonderful historic building. It needs to be used. The addition where you've placed it is a removable entity. Again, I think you need to consider carefully the material you use to wrap your addition in, and how does it look with this historic structure. But I think the window work you're going to do, salvaging the one window and moving it to replace the lost portion, I think is a good option in this case, because then it does give you a utility entrance into the building. looking at the roof plan, and it looks like you've got a stair going up with a dog shed on the roof. You might want to think about that. No need to put extra structure up there if you don't need it, if you can do the same with a hatch and a ladder, a good ladder. There's some very nice hatches out there, but all in all, I think this is a very good project for this site and for this building. You obviously love the building and appreciate the aesthetics of it. And I'm also glad you're keeping the vault. I was watching them take tintype pictures of people in the vault this weekend, and there was a big long line, or I would have been at the front of it. So I think you've got a special space there for your future use. So good luck.
Commissioner Haynes?
Well, Commissioner Burdett kind of stole all my fire, but so
She does that.
I generally support her comments. I am also very happy that you are taking this on. It is a building that deserves a second life, so you are commended for providing that life. I think in general, you're making all the right moves for maintaining the character of the building. The addition is in the right location. I am not as, I'm actually okay with the exterior material, because I think it provides, it is a background material that won't compete with the building itself. I don't think it necessarily needs to be brick to be a compatible and complementary addition. It's a functional addition. It can be a good background piece, and that material will easily allow it to be removed down the road, should that be the case. I think the HVAC equipment is better off the ground since, as Ms. Pearsall said, the rear facades are seen from the sidewalks, and I think having the HVAC up on the roof is a better location if we can minimize the screening. And so that's to be determined, but I think it is a more ideal location if we can hide it and not see any screening. I'm great with the door proposed. Overall massing of the addition, I think, is appropriate in size to the building, so that works, and I would support the project.
Anyone else? Commissioner Galway.
Thank you, Commissioner Galway. I too am really excited about the ability to reuse this building, and even to put the distillery in there is just an exciting and wonderful opportunity. The screen bothers me, as it does many of us. I challenge you to at least evaluate the possibility of putting the equipment up there and not needing a screen. In order to do that, is there an effective way, without destroying historical character or materials, to actually set the equipment down into the attic but remain exposed to the outside? I know that would, and one of my leading questions about the structure was, I don't know what that really is, but there's a possibility that you could remove a portion of the roof, put the equipment in a well, eliminate the need for a screen, still have this equipment being open air, and do it in a way that it could be undone in the future should there be a historic reason to do that. So there may be a win-win here, and I do think that would be a better alternative than putting the equipment out on grade, where oftentimes the noise and just the visual impact is something that's not desirable. So that's something that I'd like to say, it might be worth you looking at, and because I think that's the one thing that really strikes me. It's hard to find a material that's harmonious, but at the same way, not competing with the existing building. The screen of height of, I think it was about 8 feet, as you showed on the section, just seems much too high. I understand, that you're showing maybe what is considered a worst case, but at the very least, if partially maybe submerged, very low equipment, depending on the HVAC system, pushing that screen back to the corner of the building, or at least from the two street views, it is much less prominent. I think that would be something then that I could support. Thank you.
Anyone else? Commissioner Pelletier.
Thanks. That's a great idea. I just wanted to reiterate that. What I want to say is that HVAC is on grade now. It's a bunch of mini splits in the back, and it looks terrible. And so I would be all for putting this on the roof if you can find it. What everybody else has said, if you can find a visually appealing way to do it. I would suggest a material maybe like zinc that's going to weather and will have a patina rather than something that's shiny. I don't know how, I couldn't really tell from the photos how shiny you're planning on making the addition, but I'm all for different materials so it doesn't look like the historic building, but I would just suggest something a bit more maybe earthy and toned down. But in general, I'm excited about this and waiting for it to open. So I can support this with a few alterations, and I wish you guys luck.
Anyone else? If not, let me, first of all of our comments and everything will be available to you. Everything, we'll have a full, full transcript of it, so you'll be able to understand every single thing we said, and hopefully it'll be helpful. But let me just try to summarize for you. I think all of us are very much in favor of what you're doing. We're thrilled. I think that you're going to use this building, I think, in a very productive way. I think most of us feel that the HVAC should be on the roof if it can be screened in such a way or hidden in such a way that it's not visible from the street. I think most of us, I included, really don't like having it on grade. I just don't think that is very appropriate for the building. I think we're all pretty much in agreement that the addition is okay. Some of us would like to see it screened in a way that is not shiny, and there are ways to do that. I personally would not like to see it in brick or masonry. I would prefer another material, so it's very clear that it was not part of this building. And I think with that, unless I missed something, hopefully we'll see this very soon, and we're very excited to see it. So thank you so much for coming to us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is tax credit batch number 7 and final transmittal.
Yes, Mr. Chair, the last batch of tax credits for tax year 2021 are complete. Batch 7 includes 2 projects, and the amount is $50,261.46 of qualified expenses, and staff asked for the HPC to authorize us to transmit these to the Department of Finance.
Do I have a motion to transmit all of our tax credits to the Department of Finance?
Chair Sutton, I make the motion that we transmit all of our tax credit batches 1 through 7 to the
County Department of Finance.
County Department of Finance.
Thank you. Is there a second?
It's Commissioner Haynes, I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda are minutes from November 16. Would anyone like to make a motion for the minutes?
This is Commissioner Burdett, and I actually did read the minutes for this last round, and I make a motion that we approve the minutes of November 16th, 2022.
It's Commissioner Haynes, I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Opposed? Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a commission item, and there is one commission item which is transmitting a letter to the, actually, let me turn this to Rebecca Ballo, if you could tell us what we are supposed to do here.
Thank you, Chair Sutton. This is an item for the HPC to discuss, and if you all agree to, make a motion to transmit a letter to the county executive regarding the disposition of the Weller's dry cleaning site. As you may not know, though, when master plan amendments are transmitted from the planning board to the council, they are also transmitted to the county executive at that time for his office to read the master plan amendment. But in advance of that, if the HPC would like to send a letter directly to the executive's attention, just again, noting I would say the public process that has occurred to date this fall. There have been now several hearings, several instances of public outreach, and just a number of things that are happening with the site. Some of the commissioners had asked if a letter could be sent, and it would just require your motion this evening to do so, and then staff would draft a letter for the chair to send.
Any discussion on this?
I do. This is Commissioner Berta. I think it's very important to send this letter to the county executive, given the various issues that have come up with the Weller building itself, and also the issues surrounding the owner and their difficulty with the process. I think it's important that everybody be up to speed on this as it moves through its process.
Great. Anything else? Since you're on a roll here, would you like to make a motion?
Okay, Commissioner Burdett, again, I make a motion that we transmit a letter to the county executive's office regarding the Weller's Dry Cleaners property and its current process through the designation process.
Is there a second?
Commissioner Haynes, I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All in favor, so all in favor of this one? No abstentions? Correct? Thank you. Also, we're sending a letter to the head of the planning board on rustic roads, correct?
Yes, Chair Sutton. At the last HPC meeting, when the commission received a briefing from the planning department staff, the board moved at that time to draft a letter to send to the planning board. Their public hearing period closes this Friday. So following that motion, we have drafted a letter that the chair and the vice chair have approved and have sent that to the planning board chair.
Thank you. If there are no more commission items, are there any staff items?
No, Chair Sutton.
With that, I call the meeting adjourned. Thank you so much.